Well, this is exciting. Thank you, Salpi. Thank you, Susanna, Kyle, and everybody for being here, everybody who supported this. And I'm so happy that you didn't run away seeing my title. It's a little bit fancier, scholarly title when compared to the earlier titles, but I hope the talk will not be that boring. I come from Ankara. I'm not Armenian. My hyphens are between different words. My great-grandparents came from the island of Crete, Rhodes, Circassia, Bosnia. These are the ones I remember. So it's a different story. But I'm working on Armeno-Turkish texts, and I'm going to be speaking about them. I'll try to introduce what it is. Hayadar Türkeren, Hayadar Türkeren, Dutch Keren, meaning Turkish. Turkish in Armenian script, characters, letters, ipupen, whatever. Ermenice harfli Türkçe ibareli. Ermeniyul huruf Türküyül ibare. These are the terms we use to call the phenomenon. Turkish language written using the Armenian letters. What is it? Turkish language written in Mesrovian letters, mostly by and for Turkophone Armenians. Now, I highlighted mostly because now we know that this was not only something Armenian. For example, some Turks learned the Armenian letters to know more about Armenians, or they learned the Armenian script to read more world literature. Or some Western scholars, let's call them Orientalists, learned the Armenian script to read Armeno-Turkish because in Armeno-Turkish they could find the vowels which they couldn't find in Turkish with the Arabic letters. Or they could find the vernacular language, the daily language, idiomatic content in Armeno-Turkish texts. So it was very appealing for them. Now, thanks to Hasmik Stepanyan, the Armenian scholar, we have a bibliography of these texts. What are we talking about when we're talking about Armeno-Turkish? What is the corpus? So she says that the manuscripts go back to the 14th century. The books, the printing, the press goes back to the 18th century, and the periodicals, the newspapers, the journals go back to 19th century. We're talking about more than 2,000 books, nearly 400 plays staged by Armenian groups, theater groups, and over 100 periodicals. Now, these were printed in more than 200 printing houses in more than 50 cities. So we're talking about quite a global issue. What is the range of texts in Armeno-Turkish? Now, religion seems to dominate. 1/3 of the texts seem to be religious texts. Literature, linguistics. When I say linguistics, I mean bilingual, trilingual dictionaries, like Armenian, Turkish, French, Armeno-Turkish, English. Education textbooks were an important part of the corpus. Law, social sciences, history, calendars and annals, natural sciences, painting and music. These are the printed stuff. But other than these, we have many aspects of daily life in which Armeno-Turkish was used. For example, I myself, I was sent the picture by an American scholar of a kemençe who was fixed by an Armenian, and he wrote how much was to be paid in Armeno-Turkish in the kemençe with a pencil. Okay, I'll show you a few examples so that you see Armeno-Turkish. This is from a manuscript. This was an early 19th century play, a comedy. This was directed by a priest in San Lazaro, the Mekhitarist monastery, and it was, enacted by the students there. This is taken from a newspaper, a periodical, Rahnuma. This was printed by Protestant missionaries, the Bible House. This is the issue which came out on the 1st of January in 1915. And the editor begins by wishing a good year for the readers and then adds, so 1914 has been one of the most horrible years in human history, and 1915 will be worse. The irony is that he wasn't thinking of what was really going to happen to Armenians probably when he was saying that 1915 will be worse. This is Aşık Kerem ile Aslıhan'ın hikayesi, a folk story. These were very popular in Armeno-Turkish publications. Most of them made 4 or 5 editions. They even have the lyrics which accompanied them while they were being recited, the folk stories probably. Taparagan Hırya, The Wandering Jew, Le Juif Ferrand. One of the most popular texts that rocked mid-19th century Europe. I mean, it was something like Seinfeld in the late 80s, or even maybe more popular. So these were multi-volumed, illustrated, beautifully printed texts which were very popular at the time. This is taken from a manuscript by Eremya Çelebi Kömürcüyan. This is a translation into Armeno-Turkish from Armenian, Moses Khorenatsi's Batmutyun Hayots. This is an excerpt from a notebook which Arasanjian, I thank him, gave me. 16 pages or something like that. 1895 Noyember, Kayseri'ye vukuatının destanı. So this is a testimony in verse of the atrocities against Armenians in mid-1890s throughout Anatolia, in Caesarea, this particular one. And we have novels, of course, mid-19th century novels. A Miserable Wife. In the background, you have the conflict within the Catholic Armenian community, the Hasunists and anti-Hasunists. It's a love story, sad love story. They are all sad love stories. This one is the story of Karnik, Gülinya, and Dikran's horrible death. Again, a sad love story. But this time, in the background, you have the Sahmanat Rutyun, the Armenian constitution. So much that, at one point in the novel, the young lady and the young man are speaking, and the young man proposes, "Will you love me forever?" And she says, "Okay, we'll see, but first tell me, are you for the constitution or not?" Sahmanadragan ek, tevoç. Sahmanadragan mısın, değil mi? Önce onu bileyim. And this, the story of Akabi, 1851, this is the first novel written in the Turkish language, and it was written by an Ottoman Armenian. When I first had the Xerox of this book, I got it from the Armenian Patriarchate in Kumkapı, in Istanbul. I was holding this on my lap when the telephone rang, and we learned that Hrant was shot. So it was the first time in my life I heard an Armenian word really uttered, knowing that it was Armenian and it was Ayo, uttered by Vahashak Seropyan, who was trying to reach his father, Sarkis Seropyan. The story of Akabi was printed in Istanbul. It was printed anonymously. It was dangerous to do what Vartanyan, Josef Vartanyan, the author, was doing. It's again a sad love story. It's a hyphenated love. It was between a Catholic Armenian and an Apostolic Armenian. It's like Romeo and Juliet. They commit suicide in the end. They can't come together because their coming together, their marriage implies the marriage of the churches, the two churches, which was very obvious in the novel. Apparently, it was very influential, immediately banned by the Inquisition and sold out. So when we look at the newspapers of the time, like Arshaluis Araradyan, Meru, Noyan Agavni, we see that it was influential, it was known, it wasn't something minor, marginal, there, not from us, not at all. Now, Josef Vartanyan was born in 1816 in Istanbul and died in Istanbul in 1879. These are his hyphens. Ottoman, Turkish, Armenian, Catholic. That's not enough. He is a Mkhitarist because within the Catholic community, it's something else to be a Mkhitarist. It's something else to be not a Mkhitarist. Armeno-Turkish texts in general. So, it's not hard to see that these were marginalized and overlooked for a long time. Why? When you're trying to draw the national cultural borders, see, this is something hybrid. It's like minor, a few religious texts written by missionaries. It's cosmopolitan. It's an insult for the national imaginary. In Turkey, we still use it like an insult, like you cosmopolitan. It's non-national. It's Turkish. It's either Catholics did that. You know, they speak Turkish all the time. They hate Armenian identity. Or it's Protestant. Protestants, you know, these Protestants did this Armeno-Turkish thing, not the rest of the community. It's always someone else, someone there, someone other. Huh? Turkeren Lesbov. Oy, babam. Hayarani Aypupenov. Ooh. In Armenian letters, no. Okay. Whereas, when we look at what was going on, it wasn't something Armenian, as I said in the beginning. It was a common medium for communication. It was not used only by Armenians. Many other people from other millets used it for practical reasons, to read textbooks, to, as I said, to read more into world literature, to communicate in writing with each other. It was used in many aspects of daily life. I even saw in a notebook there, some recipe for black magic was written down in Armeno-Turkish. So it was saying, if your servant runs away, you should do this so that she comes back. And it shows how culture is created, mediated, born by hyphenated identities. Like one of the two creators of Roman comedy was an African slave. So, in the part of the world where I live, where I come from and where I'll go back to, almost 100 years ago, a ruthless dehyphenation and rehyphenation process was going on. Now something similar is happening. But you know, in order to be able to become a hyphenated identity, you have to survive first. And I hope, and let's hope, that people survive so that they become hyphenated identities. I'll end with some hints showing that the link between a language and the writing system is not that unbreakable as we tend to think. I know this is hard to understand for Armenians because they're proud of the alphabet and it's an extreme case. But these are the end. So Armeno-Western English and Armeno-Eastern English. Thank you for your patience. Şunlara böyle tüm.